Okay, welcome everybody to this evening's 6 p.m. City Council meeting of March 26, 2019. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present. First item on our agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Vice Chair Jaberka.
I'm going to do it. Please rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please consider joining us for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, first item on our agenda, we have some recognitions this evening. We've asked Council Member Stevens to read our Child Abuse Prevention Month joint proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Declaring April 2019 Child Abuse Prevention Month in Ogden City. Whereas all children deserve to experience and enjoy a carefree and innocent childhood. But child abuse remains a serious and growing problem. More than 20,000 cases of child abuse is investigated in Utah annually. That's quite a number, isn't it? And whereas child abuse respects no racial, religious, class, or geographic boundaries, more than 90% of all abuse happens by a person that the child knows. Sexual abuse is the most common form of abuse in Utah. And whereas preventing child abuse depends upon the efforts of residents to make a positive, substantial impact on the children of today, who will become the leaders of tomorrow. And whereas all Ogden City residents are encouraged to become more aware of child abuse within their respective communities, learn how to prevent it, and actively encouraged to support parents to raise their children in a safe and nurturing environment. And whereas Ogden City encourages individuals, family, business to support Prevent Child Abuse Utah in its important mission to prevent child abuse throughout the state. Now therefore, the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell do hereby proclaim April 2019 Child Abuse Prevention Month in Ogden City. We encourage residents to join Prevent Child Abuse Utah in becoming an advocate for children to create a society where child abuse is not tolerated. We ask everyone to actively foster a caring community that will help to protect our children and end child abuse and neglect. Passed and adopted the 26th May day of March 2019. And I present that as a resolution.
Would you like to make a motion?
Make it that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Stevens, second by Councilmember Blair, to adopt joint proclamation declaring April 2019 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Ogden. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. We've got Gwen Knight. Is Gwen here with it? There she. Okay, there you go. And Tony DeVino are with us tonight to accept the recognition. Thank you. Come on.
Yeah, shake everybody's hand.
wonderful. You got more work to do.
Yeah, that's a.
Council members there. Thank you so much.
Yep. Okay, great.
Certainly speaks to
Thank
your
you.
concern for your citizens.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Get a picture. We really have to go down there and we're gonna have you stand over here and some pictures.
Okay,
Okay?
I'll do that.
All right.
I just want to bring that around.
Tony is our board chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thanks for the
Thank you.
recognition.
Thank you.
So much.
Tell me about my crush on him.
Did you tell him that?
Yeah, we met him.
I know. Yeah.
Can we do this right here?
Yeah, that's what we're doing. It.
Is there anyone else that needs to come up?
No, we got everybody here.
Okay.
We'd love to hear from you.
Would you?
Yeah, we'd love to hear
Yeah,
from
go ahead and say something.
If you could just limit your comments to 30 minutes, we appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for this wonderful proclamation. It just certainly speaks to your care and concern for your citizens and for the children of the community. I would just like to challenge you during this month to take a free online tutorial about how to prevent abuse. And the URL is simple, howtopreventabuse.org. And learn more about how you can keep kids safe from child sexual abuse and how to recognize that. And again, we're so pleased to be part of this community and have our office here in Ogden and to serve our wonderful children and citizens. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just want to add to that. I do think that if you do take the online tutorial, you will be surprised. You will be shocked at times, but it's really good. It's about a half an hour max, and you will learn a lot. Also, and I do want to say, Prevent Child Abuse of Utah as an agency started here in Ogden 25, 28, probably 30 years ago. And so it's a statewide agency now, but it originated here in Ogden and has grown again statewide now, and we have an office in Salt Lake as well. But our origins are here, and we do appreciate your support. I actually have been on the board now for probably 23 or 4 years, and it's kind of my cause. I think these kids do deserve a good childhood and one free of abuse. And so I spend a lot of time on it and throw a few dollars at it occasionally. And so we appreciate that you recognize that there is a need out there, and it is a worthy cause.
Absolutely.
So
We haven't heard from your partner here.
Introduce yourself.
Introduce
Rebecca.
yourself, if you would.
My name is Rebecca Virgo, and I'm the program administrator for our Parents as Teachers Home Visiting Program through Prevent Child Abuse Utah. The thing that I want to share with you is how powerful it was to hear the words, to say it out loud here in a city meeting. Last year, we decided to use our April being Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month to directly impact our families that we serve through home visiting, to make it a theme for the month. And we took a survey with our families. We wanted to really pay attention to see if the word sexual abuse or child abuse was going to be something that they were going to be just like, whoa, you're talking about this in my house, or something that they would have a lot of issues with. And they didn't. The parents were so thankful to have it said out loud, to have some tools that they could use with their kids and to change the story, because so many of the parents that we serve have been traumatized. They are the survivors, and they're kind of barely making it through. This becomes one of those social determinants of health that, you've had trauma in your life, and so you walk through life in a different way because you carry this. And they are so ready to change that story for their children. And I'm so thankful that we are bringing this out of the shadows and out loud so that we can change the story in our future and make Utah a much safer place for our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
From the bottom of our hearts.
Oh, our
you.
part's easy by comparison. You guys have done a ton of work for a lot of years. I know a lot of people that have been involved with the organization because of your guys' long-term commitment. So thank you for everything you guys do, and we appreciate you being here. But
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that I will say, and this is a national statistic, but 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused by the time they're 18. It is a huge problem. I mean, that number's staggering when you think about it. 1 in 4, 1 in 6. It's terrible.
It's terrible. And if anything's worthy of our attention, it's certainly our children. And we appreciate you guys. Might want to stick around for the next recognition as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Chair Nadolski, it's always fun to
Yeah.
see the
The
pinwheels too.
Pinwheels, yeah.
Oh, yeah, true. You're right. Yeah, thanks. Okay, next recognition on our agenda is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We've asked Vice Chair Chaburka to read this.
Thank you. I'm very proud to do so. This is a resolution declaring April 2019 Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Ogden City. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month is intended to draw attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and has public health implications for every community member of Ogden. And whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment impact our community as seen by statistics indicating that 1 in 5 women will have experienced sexual assault by the time they complete college. In Utah, 9.7% of adults report having experienced sexual assault. And whereas we must work together to educate our community about what can be done to prevent sexual assault and how to support survivors. And whereas staff and volunteers of anti-violence programs such as Weber State University's Women's Safe at Weber Violence Prevention and Advocacy Services, Your Community Connection, and others in Ogden encourage every person to speak out when witnessing acts of violence, however small. And whereas, with leadership, dedication, and encouragement, there is compelling evidence that we can be successful in reducing sexual violence in Ogden through prevention, education, increased awareness, and holding perpetrators who commit acts of violence responsible for their actions. And whereas, Ogden City strongly supports the efforts of national, state, and local partners and every citizen to actively engage in public and private efforts, including conversations about what sexual violence is, how to prevent it, how to help survivors connect with services, and how every segment of our society can work together to better address sexual violence. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell hereby proclaim April 2019 Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Ogden City. We encourage residents, schools, businesses, and community groups to recognize the widespread issue of sexual assault and join together to take action to prevent sexual violence. I therefore motion that we approve this joint proclamation.
I second it.
I mean, hang on.
Good timing, gentlemen. We have a motion by Vice Chair Chaburka, seconded by Councilmember Stevens to adopt this joint proclamation declaring April 2019 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Ogden City. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. We are joined this evening by Paige Davies. Perfect.
Director.
We will take this there.
I'm so sorry.
I'll do it over here.
Yes.
Was that assault?
That's cool. Yeah.
We get a photo with
1 second, yes. This camera doesn't have a card in it, so.
Dance.
So we'll hear from you now.
Oh yeah. Would you like to say anything?
There you go. Oh, thank you, Mark.
Yeah. We'll just stand here and wait.
So my name's Paige Davies. I'm the director of the Women's Center at Weber State University, and we coordinate the Safe at Weber Violence Prevention Advocacy Services program. So we work with all campus survivors, students, and employees of sexual violence, domestic violence, stalking, and other forms of harassment. Part of what we do is also provide prevention education university-wide. So we have some university partners here as well, such, I'm going to shout out Erin Garza, who is one of our Title IX coordinators on campus, our sexual assault detective, Tessie Zaragoza, support from our office, Miss Betty Sawyer, too, as well, and anybody else at Weber. It's definitely a collaborative effort that we could not do alone, and that we count on our partners across the university and across the city of Ogden to help support survivors on our campus, because we know that they are also survivors in our community. So thanks to Ogden City for their continued support of Weber State, and also to our community partner YCC, who we work very closely with to provide comprehensive support and prevention efforts. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Exactly.
Perfect. Oh, I'll just stand by you.
What about Betty?
Betty, come up here. Yeah, Betty. Come on, Betty.
I think she's in.
Yeah, she's in most of our pictures.
I know, she does this every time.
Yeah, she's in most of our pictures. Yeah.
Okay, those took for real. We're good. Thank you. We need to
Should we
retake the other ones, if
retake
you wouldn't mind.
Oh, I'm so glad they stayed.
Oh,
Me too.
we're gonna retake the other one too, guys.
This is an honor twice.
Yes, come on back up.
Break your camera. Alright, that works. All right. 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry. So thank you. We're good.
Thank you for sticking around.
I thought you were gonna say you ran out of space or something.
No, I didn't.
Camera phone out.
I have a quick comment. Can I make a
Yeah,
comment? Is
quick
that
comment.
okay?
Yeah, of
Just
course.
Somebody else? I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the efforts of Weber State Women's Center. Over the last couple of years, I've just seen such great work happening there, and it's really noticeable on campus, and especially for this effort too. So I really appreciate the Safe at Weber logo and everything everywhere. I think that's really helpful to let people know that it's okay to talk about things that have happened to them. So I really appreciate it.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
This goes along with the anti-bullying that we did about a month ago, and it just emphasizes that we want our community to be a safe community, to be a community where we could actually raise our children to the opportunities that is coming to them in their lives. And so we want our community to exemplify that, and that's why the proclamations are very important to us.
Yeah.
You're right. Thanks for the comment. Any other comments? Just wanted to mention to Ms. Davies I don't know, maybe you've heard of it, maybe you're already working with it, but the Set the Expectation campaign, are you? Brenda Tracy. I went to that. That was a very powerful presentation. My wife works for the conference office and has helped spearhead that, but Brenda has become a good friend. She's an unbelievably powerful person with a important message. So I'm glad to hear it. Yep. Thank you. Appreciate everything you guys are doing. Okay. We have a request to be on the agenda.
Hey, Chair Nadolski.
Sure.
I would like, we've done these 2 recognitions, and if you're okay with that, I would like to amend the agenda to possibly recognize one other person today. This person has done a pretty amazing thing, and I think it's time that we recognize her for that. And I actually have a recognition here ready to do, so if we could...
Can you make a motion and the title of the recognition?
I would gladly do that. I make a motion that we amend the agenda to include a recognition for Miss Janine Eller-Smith.
I'll second.
Perfect.
Okay, we have a surprise, somewhat surprise, but not a surprise motion by Councilmember Blair, seconded by, was it Rich?
Yeah, I did.
Councilmember Heyer, to recognize our very own Janine Eller-Smith for her amazing contributions to Ogden.
Do you want to go down and be?
You can hang tight for now. For now.
Yeah, for now we have to read it,
But-
yeah.
Okay, there you go. Sorry, bear with us. We've surprised our esteemed director because she works so hard for us, but we're joined as she's coming down. We're joined this evening by her family. We have Janine's children, Tara, and spouse, Justin. Bethany and Dustin, Lori and spouse Cliff, and Ian and Monique, and her husband Chris is here as well. So we're glad you guys could be here. Thanks for being. Councilmember Blair.
Do we need to vote on that motion?
Oh yeah, thank you.
She's thrown off.
Louise.
She can't remind us.
Yeah. So we have a motion by Councilmember Blair.
I was going to tell you that you needed to do that.
See what happens when you leave the dais? Everything goes haywire. We have a motion by Councilmember Blair, second by Councilmember Heyer to amend the agenda. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Councilmember Blair.
Yes, this is truly an honor for me to read this recognition, and it reads, the Ogden City Council and Mayor proudly recognize Janine Eller-Smith for providing invaluable contributions to the Ogden community. On March 4th, 2019 in Washington, D.C., Janine Eller-Smith was admitted into the Supreme Court bar and sworn in by the Chief Justice of the United States, John G. Roberts. To be admitted to the Supreme Court bar, applicants must be endorsed by 2 current members of the bar of court and have a certificate of good standing. Ms. Eller-Smith holds a Master's of Public Administration and a Juris Doctor from Brigham Young University. She is a member of the Utah State Bar and a former practicing attorney. Though Supreme Court bar admission is not a requirement of her current position as Executive Director of the Ogden City Council, this high honor reflects her desire to stretch herself and invest in her personal and professional growth. Janine is an inspiring leader and an amazing example to those who have the privilege of working alongside her. She continually inspires all of us to be the best version of ourselves in all that we do. We are incredibly grateful for the hard work and the many contributions she has made to our city and congratulate her for this tremendous honor.
Well deserved.
You know the drill, huh?
I do.
Congratulations.
There's no actually required obligation. Okay, thanks. No action required on a recognition.
Well, we're going to take a picture with their family, so we'll hold it for a second.
Hey, family, come on up.
We're going to take a picture.
Amy hid them.
That was good. That was pretty good. That's a lot of people to hide.
I can appreciate how hard it is.
That was funny. Hi.
Tall people on that side, please.
Yes.
You know, these look like chips off the same block, though, Janine.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
This one too. You guys probably have to live.
You can stand right here if you want.
I can sit on the.
Yeah.
Put them on the counter.
Alright, close together, there we go, okay, can everybody see me? Yeah, looks like it, okay, everybody look in here, 1, 2, 3. Let's do it again, 1, 2, 3. No one's blinking, I hope, we'll find out later, okay. Awesome, I think we got
enough. So there's a couple of gifts.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. And there's some other things that are still on there in route.
Okay.
So
Awesome, thank you.
yes.
Wow.
And
We'd like to hear from you.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to say, Janine.
The kids were promised ice cream if they stayed quiet. So they're collecting. Yeah. They're collecting on their promise.
Thanks for lending them to us every once in a while.
You're kidding.
Thank you, that was a really big surprise.
Right, we did it.
I saw the faces you were making when you heard that we were amending the agenda.
Did we miss something? What's going on?
She's like, oh, here they go.
That guy doesn't talk all month.
Yeah, I was freaking out. I thought that we'd missed something on the agenda. So, yeah, it's really great to have my family here too. So I probably haven't shared with all of you what a great experience it was to go to DC, and I took my 3 daughters with me. Sorry, Ian, we didn't take you. But we got to go into the court. I met 3 of the justices, the Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Kagan and Justice Ginsburg, which was a great honor. And I'm still waiting because they took some pictures and I got to sit right next to her, but I haven't got the pictures yet. But that's going to be my forever Facebook page. Yes. So once I get that. It's really great, and I appreciate the recognition, and it's so great to work with such great people and such thoughtful people for you to do this for me, and I just thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on, any comments from council members?
Well, I've been on the council for just a number of years, but
How long? Oh, just kidding, just
a little
kidding.
bit.
A number. You said a number.
A number of years.
You know, I've always admired Janine because she was really accurate in what she was presenting, and I could trust in the information that she would provide. She is actually dedicated and not only to the city but to the council, and we're fortunate to have an individual of her caliber and her talent to be our director of our council. I was interested if I'd still be here when Bill Cook was around, but when she came in for the interview, it resonated who our next council director was going to be. There was no question of the magnitude. And I think with that move of making her our director, we have actually broadened our scope of what we can become as a council and what we can become as Ogden City. She corrects us when we need to be corrected, and I appreciate that. I don't know if she does that to her husband, but I appreciate the knowledge and the guidance that she gives to myself and also the council.
Any others?
I have, yeah. I have a couple things I'd like to say. First of all, until we get that picture in, maybe this could be your Facebook picture. It's a close second. Next, I don't want to take. I was happy and honored to be able to read that recognition, but that was not my
Idea.
Well, I don't want to say my idea, but I don't want to get all the credit for that. There's a lot of people that deserve credit for that, and so thank you to all those that spearheaded that and allowed me to read that. I was honored to be able to read that for Janine because I haven't been here as long as Doug, but in the time I've been on the council, Janine does a lot of work for all of us, a lot of work for a lot of people, and she never asks for recognition. She never asks to be mentioned in any of that. She just goes about her work, and she does her work very, very well. It's an honor to work with her. It's an honor to watch her work, and it's an honor to learn from her. And this recognition, though this is an amazing accomplishment, this recognition is long, long overdue for what she does for us and for our city, basically. So I just want to say thanks again and congratulations. That really is an accomplishment. And I'm surprised that recognition didn't say anything about how funny you are. I don't think people really know how funny she is.
So true. So
But she is an amazing woman, and we are very lucky to have her and to be able to work alongside of her. So congratulations.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just have one quick one, and that is she always does it with such grace, too. Just like today, I emailed something, and she wrote back, by the way, it's part of the daily emails that you get, or weekly emails that you get, and I just, I'm like, it's like she's herding cats every single day, and I appreciate it, and you do it with such grace. It's like you never stop, you just kind of keep on going, so I appreciate it.
I'd like to say a couple of things too. I've known Janine for the years that I've been on the council. We didn't know one another prior to that. as the deputy director, we didn't get to know each other very well. It just didn't happen with the way the dynamic was. But since I also got to work as the acting chair during her hiring process due to circumstances, and I got to talk to a lot of people, and she was one of the applicants, of course, otherwise she wouldn't be here. But it was clear that she was going to help the council in a direction that we needed to go in, that would elevate us. And Doug went into that a little bit. It's nice as a council member to be able to rely that Janine is going to have the right answer. She doesn't ever fake it.
No pressure.
She if she doesn't know, she just says, "I'll find out," and she comes up with the right answer. It's just always the case. She's very reliable on that. She's very forthright, forthcoming. You don't have to wonder what her back agenda is. All those things, I so appreciate that about you, and I hope we will continue to be friends after we're not colleagues. So,
Thank you.
Everyone said everything I wanted to say. Congratulations, Janine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll be quick too, but I just want to say how much I appreciate your mentorship and being a new council member and not always knowing what I'm doing, and giving me great advice. But I also think you're a great inspiration as a leader and as a woman in this world. So,
Thank you.
I get to go last, but you will never find anybody that will say anything bad about Janine or who does not like Janine Eller-Smith. And like I think it was Councilmember Heyer said, we didn't get to know her personality as much when she was the deputy director, but boy, have we gotten to know her since she became the executive director, and she is hilarious. For those that don't know, she really is a big personality. But we, on a professional note, we want to recognize you and your efforts to grow, to help challenge yourself, and to grow in ways that you don't have to do that to do what you do, but you want to do that because you want to be better. And we want to recognize that in you because we want to recognize it in everybody and to encourage it in everybody. And for the family, it's so nice to see you guys here. You have a beautiful family. And we hope you guys know how much we love your mother and wife.
grandmother.
Grandmother, a couple grandkids there. And as a colleague, we treasure her. As a person, we absolutely adore Janine Eller-Smith. She is just such a spectacular person, and she's such a beautiful person. All of her inner beauty comes out in her laughter, and I tell her this all the time, but I don't know anybody whose laughter makes me happier than Janine's. We love having you here, and we hope you love being here as much as we love having you. Thanks for everything.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just a really great pleasure to serve with you and an honor to serve with you. And hopefully I can do it for a few more years.
As long as you're willing. We got to make sure that we thank the staff for all of the tiptoeing around the office, the late night text messages and emails and phone calls, make sure we didn't mess anything up and didn't freak Janine out too bad. And for arranging to have the family here.
It was a total surprise, that's for
sure. Your staff loves having you too. It's obvious. So
Sounds like you're buying some ice cream, though.
Yeah. What did you think when Amy Sue's went running out?
Well, I didn't know. So. I thought somebody might have left something and she was going to catch it. That's what I thought. What happened? So.
This was fun.
Yeah.
This was really fun.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's get back to this.
And thanks,
everybody.
family. Appreciate your support.
Okay. Thanks for being here. Yep. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled agenda. We have a request to be on the agenda, the Ogden Christmas Village Committee, presentation of the Sunset Report.
Thanks, Chair. We've asked Monty, alias Jay Jr., to begin by introducing the committee and then starting this off, and he'll introduce who will give the presentation. Sorry, couldn't help.
Did you have that legal name change, did you?
I think I might have to have it legally changed.
We should probably ask, we hope that doesn't offend you.
wonderful thing.
It doesn't affect
Okay.
me. So. Chair Nadolski, members of the council, Mr. Johnson. I'm here and I'm proud to introduce the Ogden Christmas Village Committee. And we have a few members of the committee. If you could come up, I'd like to introduce them and then introduce the chair for the sunset report.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have all of the members here, unfortunately, but we have a few. As you guys know, the committee is comprised of some city help and some very passionate citizens. And we have Jacob Chadwick here, who is a member of the committee and also works for the Parks Department. We have Joe Packham here, very instrumental in helping out with Christmas Village for a long time and many changes. And then, as you guys know, we've got a big part of our city, Cindy Hellwell. She is our new chair for the committee, and I'd like to turn the time over to her for the sunset presentation.
Monty, let's acknowledge that young lady in the corner there that's not
She's
hiding.
hiding.
Yes.
Stacy, come on up, Stacy.
She wanted to make an entrance, I think.
That was pretty smooth, Stacy, but come up here. Stacy is really like the liaison between the city and the committee and puts in many, many hours making things go off. So.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, you guys.
Sorry.
Thank you, Jay Jr.
Okay. Chair Nadolski, Vice Chair Joberka, Council Members Blair, Heyer, Lopez, Stevens, and White, Mayor Caldwell, CAO Johnson, Council staff, and City Attorney. It's an honor to stand before you tonight and represent Ogden City's Christmas Village Committee. As a child, I would go to Christmas Village every year with my parents, and I just loved it. And now it's a tradition that my husband and I share with our children. And it's something I've been passionate about for many years. We have a PowerPoint. Sorry. I know you've all seen it in your packet, but I'm just going to touch on a few of the highlights. So, Christmas Village began in 1962 and has become a holiday tradition for the majority of families in Ogden and surrounding communities. The village provides a tremendous season of activities, events, entertainment, and visits with Mr. and Mrs. Claus. Can
you help her?
She's having a hard time figuring out how to change the slide.
Sometimes the mouse can get a little tricky. Hit the arrow.
Okay.
There it is. And it's back. Yeah, just use the arrow.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Went too far.
Okay.
Go back one. Go back one. That's better. That's it.
Okay. Staff representation consists of Monty Stewart, Parks and Cemetery Manager, Jacob Chadwick, Structural Maintenance Supervisor, and Stacy Olson, Project Coordinator. The staff is amazing to work with, and all of the park staff. We couldn't do it without them. They're down there, everything we need, they accommodate. They're great to work with, lots of long hours, and the committee is great too. They're all hardworking, and we really enjoy it. Sorry. Opening night festivities. The opening gala continues to improve. In 2018, we had the largest fireworks show Christmas Village has ever seen, and also the tradition of including Make-A-Wish Child as parade royalty and having them help Santa turn on the lights continues to be a highlight of the evening while providing Ogden City an opportunity for public relations. Santa and Mrs. Claus are in the village. They're in the parade, and then some nights we just have Santa, and some nights we have Santa and Mrs. Claus, and then we have Mrs. Claus tours during the weekday for the preschool children. The number of visitors has grown from an estimated 2,000 in 2001 to 10,000 in 2018. We have live entertainment is offered 6 nights a week. Local school groups, dance companies, and individuals volunteer their time to entertain the crowds. The amphitheater is a huge part of that. It's wonderful, and people love the stage and the sound and everything. Train. I don't know if you noticed, but this past season in 2018, the structural maintenance crew, with the help of an operations employee, began restoring and rebuilding the old train that was located at Glenwood Park, Larm Bar. The engineer's car was intact and most of the original sections of track were usable, but the engine was in need of a rebuild. The engine car had a distinct Art Deco look, but was missing the passenger cars. The crew made a template based off measurements from the engineer's car and looked at old photos and fabricated cars that would match the original design. The train was a big hit. It was in the northwest corner, down here by Grant, and people loved it. And we made our theme this past year, All Aboard, to help kick off the sesquicentennial that's coming up at Union Station this next year. So the train was a hit, and we incorporated other things as well. In 2012, the Christmas Village Committee built a small store to sell Christmas Village memorabilia. Each year, the sales have gone up, and the proceeds go back into the village to support new displays and improvements. Breakfast with Santa, we began 2 years ago at the Ben Lomond Hotel, now the Bigelow. And this past year, we had it at Union Station to help with the sesquicentennial and the theme, and Santa passed out train whistles to each child, and those were a big hit. And then we had a balloon person that did all kinds of balloons, and it's growing each year. It's been really fun. In 2018, the committee added some photo ops in the park. These included 2 bears sitting in the forest area, 2 lighted chandeliers in the amphitheater, and an old-fashioned truck in the plaza. Guests were encouraged to tag their photos with hashtags so the pictures could be viewed on social media. And we do a lot of advertising and contests and things on social media, and that's really been a big hit because that's what everybody is doing now. We received in 2018, Ogden's Christmas Village received the Best Estate Award in the Community Development Public Sector Public Works category. And then we've had lots of other national recognitions. We have people come from all over, and it's just a destination. We're really proud of that. The Christmas Village Committee would like to continue to add new cottages, static displays, and animated figures. This may involve electrical upgrades to the existing system. The committee also plans to continue their solicitation of new sponsorships to accomplish their goals. We have quite a drain on the power, but we've been changing out all of the lights for LEDs because they use so much less, and that's really helped. And we're planning on adding 5 new cottages this season with that. And at this time, there's no recommended changes to the Christmas Village ordinance. And we want to thank you for your continued support of Christmas Village. And if there's any questions.
I have a question. About with the LEDs, switching over to the LEDs, that does help, right? I know that the electricity and the electrical issues are I don't want to say a problem, but are a concern. Yeah.
They are concerned, not just that we need more, but there were quite a few times when it's a wet season that they get wet and the electricity shuts off and we have to try and reset and things. But the LEDs will help greatly on the power drain, but we still, long-term down the road could use more help.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So, Councilman Blair, we've actually, most all of the park has now been switched over to LED. We have a few minor things with the static displays and the cottages. And then we have some sections of the streets down 25th and on Washington, but we're just working on those, and it has been a big help because they just use a fraction of the power that incandescent does. So.
Good. I have one other question concerning electricity. I know that there's a lot of street vendors on there also. Do they use? Is that the same? They're hooked up to the same electricity that our lights are. Is that correct? Is that
the street vendors out front here, the taco carts?
Taco carts and stuff like that.
They're actually not supposed to be hooked into any of that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they're There's one gentleman that had decorated his, and he had like a little battery pack and things, but
Perfect. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Quick question too. Somebody asked me, where do we store the cottages? Do we store them somewhere?
Yep, we have actually a warehouse out at BDO where we store them in during the off-season. And we have days where the decorators can come out in a heated warehouse and they can work on painting and restoring their cottages, or they can take them and do it. But
We're always looking for new spaces, though. Is your garage available?
Yeah. I was going to use one of those in my garage.
Maybe tiny homes.
Yeah.
Do you know where you're going to place the 5 cottages that will be coming on board?
we're actually, one of them will be a replacement of another one that needs to be replaced. And then each year we position them different places. We can move things around, but Monty might have more knowledge of that. But we know with the LEDs that we have the power for those. But if we're going to continue to expand, we, I think, need more help.
That train you had when I was younger, a little bit younger, I rode in that at Larnfar Park, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, the engine was quite a find.
It was brand new then.
And the staff.
It's only 110 years old.
The staff did a great job making the cars to match, and everyone loved it. We had a lot of good comments.
Well, thanks for what you do for us.
Thank you.
That's a real jewel for Ogden
Enjoy
City.
it.
And
It's the funnest committee in the city.
I'm sure it is.
Anything else?
Okay, so just so we're clear, we are, for the record, we're considering extending a new sunset date for the committee that would be extended 3 years to April 1st, 2022. And we're also this evening considering reappointment of Judy Coley, Luann Kamigagi, Cindy Hallowell, Diane Nelson, Stephanie Grundy, Sandra Tuck, Carrie Fatino Ritz, and Andrew Garcia, and the appointment of Cindy Wheelock and Clint Weston, all to the Ogden Christmas Village Committee.
Well, Mr. Chair, then I will make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2019-13 that does all of those things you just mentioned.
I second it.
That would extend the sunset,
It would just
for
extend the
clarity.
sunset date.
Well, that's true.
Sunset.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, seconded by, was it Councilmember Stevens? Councilmember Stevens to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-13, which would extend the sunset provision for the Ogden Christmas Village Committee. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes.
Now, along that, I will go ahead and make a motion that we approve the appointments and reappointments of those listed on the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Blair, seconded by Councilmember Lopez to approve the appointments and reappointments listed in the agenda. Is this a voice vote? This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you so much for being here, you guys.
Are there people here from the?
They were, I think they were all introduced already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Any more? I didn't know if the new.
I think we got them all.
players were
Jay
here.
Junior, anybody else? Are we good? Okay. For anybody who was wondering what Jay Junior means, just compare him to the gentleman that's walking out the back here.
He is an individual person all by himself.
Doppelgangers,
too.
those, yeah, okay.
Really awesome.
All right. Bear with us, folks. We've got some minutes to approve. For the training session of September 19th, 2018, Councilmember Stevens.
Yes, sir, correct.
For the regular meeting of November 20th, 2019, or Councilmember Blair.
Yeah, it's the regular meeting of November 20th, 2018. Other than that, they are correct.
Oh, thank you for that correction.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to this.
For the joint work session of December 11th, 2018, Councilmember White.
Yes, I've read those and they are correct.
For the special meeting of December 11th, 2018, Councilmember White.
Yes, those are correct as well.
For the regular meeting of December 18th, 2018, Councilmember Lopez.
You're correct, Chair.
For for the joint work session of December 18th, 2018, Councilmember Heyer.
Yes, I've read them and found them to be accurate.
Also for the closed executive session of December 18th, 2018, Councilmember Heyer.
I've also found them to be accurate, and I make a motion that we approve the minutes listed.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Heyer to approve the minutes as presented, second by Councilmember Lopez. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Moving on to items of common consent. We have listed the consideration of the reappointment and appointment of members of the Ogden Diversity Commission, as well as consideration of appointment for a member of the Ogden Trails Network Committee. I believe
Go ahead.
I was just going to introduce that we're joined here by a few folks. We got Viviana Felix. She's the diversity coordinator for the city. And Betty Sawyer slipped out. She has a board meeting to attend. She sends her regrets. Jeremy Shinoda is with us from the Diversity Commission. And I think that's it. Did I miss anybody?
Kathy's still there.
Kathy,
She's hiding
Kathy
now.
Darby. There you are.
She's hiding.
Okay, Kathy Darby's back there as well. Appreciate it.
Chair Nadolski, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the common consent items as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez, second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt the items of common consent. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Before we move on is Talon Diabus Valacinor here. I don't know if I got that right, but
Villaseñor.
thank you.
Close.
Okay, not really. Thanks. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for your help, guys. Moving on to public hearings, fiscal years 2020 to 2024 capital improvement plan presentation. We'll hear from Amy Maybe.
Oh, we really will.
Yeah, maybe Amy.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll hear from me.
Oh, you got one laugh
I've
out there.
never heard that joke before.
Ever.
Very creative.
We've never used it before.
That's true. First time for everything. No, you're great. So before you this evening is the capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2020 through 2024. And just wanted to go through a little bit background information on the capital improvement plan. So this is a 5-year plan that really is centered around scheduling, financing, and constructing city capital improvements. And so really looking at the next year as well as the future years, 4 years after that. So capital improvements can include projects that are above $30,000 to add to the city's physical plant, major rehabilitation or reconstruction projects, looking at land acquisition, and then feasibility studies related to CIP projects. Oh, sorry. So some of the funding sources that are utilized for these projects are the general fund, obviously, grants, BNC road funds, utility enterprise funds, bonding, and then different like local sources. So Prop 1 money, BDO lease revenue is also a big contributor to those, and then like the ramp grants and things like that. So the plan process is quite extensive, and a lot of this went on the last couple months, and Janine was kind enough to kind of help guide you along in that process, but really starts with an identification of capital improvement needs. So the administration really tries to look at what future needs we have and bring those forward to you for your consideration. Look at the long-term goals of the city and what is needed and what direction you as a council want to take policy-wise in funding and moving forward with those, and then ensuring that the expenditures are consistent with the city's general plan. So capital improvement plan actually does go through the planning commission as part of that, and then helps as you're doing the budget process to know what major projects are out there and what can and need to be funded as you consider those items. And so then, like the budget itself, the CIP is a policy document, and administration proposes the CIP, but ultimately you make the final determinations to what's included in that document. So this is a really nice graphic that Eric from our staff put together outlining the process. So it is quite a bit of a process and extends through about half of the year, and then even beyond that, oftentimes as different projects come up, and even we have, I mean, while this has been going on, we've gotten another proposed amendment to the CIP, so it's kind of a continual thing as needs arise. So we're currently on March 26th, obviously, for the public hearing on this item, but then in May, the mayor will present his proposed budget, and then there will be additional CIP discussions relative to actual funding of the different projects. So the break year of this 5-year plan includes, there's 42 CIP projects, and so a lot of those are in the general fund and the regular enterprise fund. Some of those are in the enterprise utility fund, so water, sewer, those types of things, and then a couple of ramp grant funds. So the proposal is for 8 new projects, but they also, the administration is proposing removal of 57 projects. And really, I think that's kind of a cleanup item. Some of those have been funded, 10 of those, and then some of them are just being removed just based on timeliness and ability to complete the projects. So with that, 8 of the projects had significant increases that were already pre-existing in the previous plans in the total project cost as well. So in total, for all of those 42 projects, it's about $125 million worth of needs for capital improvements. So this is a little bit of a breakdown as well, just with the general, and then I have a slide for enterprise as well, but just to show you kind of how that breaks down in that FY 2020 proposal. And so the majority of the projects are in the public services realm, and then CED, management services, non-departmental, and then RAMP. And so from the enterprise funds, the majority of those projects would be for the water utility, and then airport, storm sewer, sanitary sewer, and golf. So as a breakdown for the proposal as well, this just kind of goes through and outlines the funding mechanisms that would contribute to that, and then the total for FY 2020 being about $18.5 million. So it is a significant investment of the city, and kind of breaks that down as to the funds associated with that. You, as a council, put together a list of your priorities. The administration had provided their priorities, so I actually bolded the top 5 of yours and the top 5 of theirs, and there's quite a bit of overlap with those. There's a couple of outliers here and there, but for the most part, the priorities are pretty well aligned, and this is something that is helpful for you all to utilize as we go through the budget process to know what the different priorities are with the projects that you'd like to see funded. And so with that, that's the presentation that I have before you this evening for the capital improvement plan. Obviously, the plan is very thorough and extensive. I don't know if you have any specific questions on specific projects, or if there's anything specifically that you'd like for me to address. I'm happy to do that this evening, but just try to provide a base overview of what's included in the plan.
Great presentation. Thank you. Any questions for Amy? Not the first time we've seen the CIP.
And it won't be the last.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, there's way more projects on the CIP than there are money to fund them. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Interestingly, though, some of these high priorities, both for the council and the administration, are some of these transportation and active transportation infrastructure projects that some state BNC road funds have helped in the last couple of years. That really helps us do bigger projects. But Jay, some appreciation to your team, just looking through the 20th Street Washington and Monroe reconstruction project. There's CIP general fund match, which is proposed in here, but there's STIP funds from the state and WACOG, and a lot of external funds to help leverage some really big infrastructure projects. So appreciate you guys going after a lot of those. Makes a big difference. Thanks,
Definitely.
Amy. Any other questions before we take action?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
This is a public hearing.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, this is a
Good thing we kept her.
Yeah.
That's why she gets the big bucks.
That's why we recognize her, yeah. This is a public hearing. This is your opportunity to address the council on this item. If you wish to address the council, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no movement.
I would make a motion that we close the public hearing with no movement.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Blair to close the public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Public hearing is closed. I'll entertain a motion.
And I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2019-8.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Blair to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-8. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye, that passes. Thank you, Amy, for teeing that up for us tonight. Appreciate it. Moving on to reports from the Planning Commission. We'll be hearing from Mr. Montgomery, there he is, on Business Exchange Historical Zone Amendment.
Okay. Thank you, Chair and members of the council. This is a recommendation from the Planning Commission regarding a petition that is filed to make changes to the Business Exchange Historic Zone out at the Exchange Place out on Exchange Road, a lot of exchanges. The petition was filed basically during a review of proposed buildings that were going to be built on the properties. And one of the present ordinances talk about a glazing requirement or glass requirement of 30% of the facades having glass. And as the two projects were submitted for review for construction, it was noted that while this was the intent of the original zone, the uses that were going to go into those buildings that were being proposed really were not office uses, which generally require a lot of windows. They were more manufacturing oriented, and that the glazing requirement created a concern in terms of the development of those buildings. These are the two buildings being proposed. One is called Ogden Zone, and you see a building elevation of that building. The other being Enable Industries, being located out on the site on Stockman Way. As you see the illustrations of what those buildings will look like, you can see that they're very attractive buildings, but under the present ordinance, they would not meet the requirements because interior-wise, only a small portion of the building was office or public space, but a large portion of the building was office, was warehousing or manufacturing. And the glazing requirements, especially on ground level, would create some potential problems for these businesses as they look to develop in the area. One of the things we took a look at when the petition was filed was the intent of the ordinance, and that intent was trying to keep the character of the stock exchange building and have that mirrored through modern interpretations in the new buildings that would be created in that zone. The ordinance uses language such as bay modules, and so I'll take in this illustration of the exchange building and see what that bay module is, that area that is defined between those two column areas. The columns being defined, the fenestration or how the windows are applied to the facade of the building, the cornice work. All those items are details that the ordinance talks about new construction needed to have, so be sympathetic to the exchange building. This gives an illustration of how these proposals were interpreting that standard. So you can see in a lot of ways they've picked up and give that modern interpretation of how the stock exchange building was put together in terms of looking at colors and in terms of windows. But again, as I mentioned, the concern of those type of standards of windows on all buildings was a problem. So as the commission discussed this and looked at the petition, requesting reduction from 30% to 24% for the glass on the exterior of the building, and also shifting that glass requirement to being at the main entrances or the front facade of the building where the public would enter. The commission discussed those things and looking at the illustrations that were there, felt that if there were other ways to interpret architecturally the idea of windows, that would still meet the intent of what the original ordinance was created for. So as the Planning Commission reviewed this, their recommendation to you is to approve a revision to this section of the BEH ordinance, the Business Exchange Historic Zone Ordinance, to allow the glazing to be reduced from 30% to 24% on the front portion of the building, that which faces the main entrance. Now, I should make mention that these two buildings, how they're located, is really almost three fronts. They face the street as it kind of wraps around in a circular area. But this will be defined in that area that is the main public entrance into the building. The other parts of the building would still have to meet the other standards of the BH ordinance in terms of having ways to mimic the idea of fenestration. That could be done by score lines in the materials that are used, but it doesn't have to be glass. Also allowing the other elements like the cornice work to be there. And if any other building designs have office space, those office space still have windows in them. But those areas of strict manufacturing would not have to have those windows. And so this is the recommendation that's before you tonight for your consideration.
Thank you, Greg. Any questions for Mr. Montgomery?
Chair Nadolski, I have one. Yep. So where did the 30% come from originally?
The 30% was our estimate of what the Exchange building had in terms of its glass on the face of the buildings.
So it was just an estimate,
we didn't have measurements at that time to go with it, just taking a look at it.
And why not 25%, just to make it a round number? Just curious.
That's what it was.
Well, the 24% is because what they're actually drawing had
so
submitted.
it's being driven by the developer.
Uh-huh.
What's the actual?
The actual, I think, was around 28.
Okay.
So did we miss something when we first looked at, or the Planning Commission looked at this?
Well,
start?
When the Planning Commission looked at it, they were really anticipating a lot more office development taking place than manufacturing development. A lot of smaller type developments taking place, so the windows will be a natural process of that building exterior. But where you get into a lot of it being a manufacturing of an area, you really don't want that glass in those areas on the ground levels.
So we're changing the perception out there then, is that right?
Well, what we've changed is those who have expressed interest in developing in that area, their products are driven by a manufacturing need, which then changed the way the floor plan would work. What we're saying is, and I think the Planning Commission's recommendation is basically saying, we think we can still meet the intent of why we did that ordinance, to be sympathetic to the Exchange building by these other design standards that really will not detract from the Exchange building, but the new design standards will accommodate their needs with still the intent of what the ordinance is about.
Okay.
Anyone else? This is a petition item, I believe. Are we joined by Aaron Robertson, the petitioner? Thanks for joining us. And
Aaron Robertson. Councilman White, you asked about the 24%. I could shed a little bit more light on that from when we've actually done scans of the building, the Exchange building, and have exact measurements. If you look at the front side, which has the majority of the glass with the three big arches, that is about 28%, as he indicated. Your other three sides are actually less than 24% if you look on the actual scans and glass amounts. And so when we look at the use of the area and the intent and what uses were permitted, while there was an ability or potential intent to have more of office uses, bottom line is these other uses were permitted uses. We haven't changed any of that. And as they've come in and wanted to use this space, and you have these local companies trying to grow within the Ogden area and not be forced out, they've found this wonderful business park, and they're saying, hey, while we want to be here, we have to make some tweaks to this. And as we've looked at it from a developer standpoint, we're analyzing the value of these tweaks, the impact of these tweaks long term, because I'm there a long time, and I've got substantial investment. We're the owners of the Exchange Building. I hope to locate my office there someday. As we look at this, we felt fairly comfortable with the idea that we are transitioning from this heavy office use that has this historical nature, these buildings incorporating a lot of those design elements, to these very modern, the Envy building and the Crank Brothers building that have a very modern industrial look. And it feels very appropriate and very natural to us. We see no issues with it. Even as we've continued to market some of these other parcels, we've shown them saying, hey, this is what might come here if this is approved. Everyone loves the design of these buildings. We've got no pushback from any current clients, potential clients. It's been fairly positive. Ultimately, I think the intent of this is to bring quality businesses to locate into Ogden. That's what we're doing. This is a transition zone, trying to protect the Exchange Building and that nature. I think these designs do that. One of the things that's been done that I think really accentuates that is the distance that these other buildings set away. There's a 30% landscaping requirement from a developer standpoint. That's huge. And all that landscaping has been pushed as a buffer from the Exchange Building. So the distances from these buildings and things, there's been a lot done to really preserve the historical nature. And I think with the feedback and comments from your staff, the efforts of the architects and the willingness of the clients that are relocating there, I think we've found a good fit that everyone seems to be comfortable with. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question. I was pleased to know that you are the owner of the Exchange Building.
Yes.
That does go a long way in my mind. I mean, it's an investment that you have, and you don't want to detract from your own investment. So that's good news. I do have some curiosity burning in me. What is your plan and timeline for the Exchange Building? Or do you have anything?
Timeline is less clear at this point, but I can say that we are in active work, and we have a design put together and have recently just figured out structurally how we're saving that and putting that back together. We are at this point working through the financial modeling of how we can make that work. We have, fingers crossed, some ideas and things in play that we hope to start implementing that this year, but we have no commitment and firmness on that at this point. But that's our hope, is within months that we transition our efforts to that building.
Great.
Thank
you.
Chair Nadolski, one more comment.
Of course.
It would be nice if that Exchange Building had windows and not boards right now. So
You got to keep the walls up first.
I would like to have windows there and I'd be looking out those windows. So in that we concur.
I'd like to go to the landscape. Are you planning to use water-wise landscaping where we would use less water but still have the beautification of it?
So the landscaping, we were not involved in the original plan of the landscaping, but we're conforming to what was originally approved. And I would say that as a water-wise landscaping, to the extent that we're putting in most, I can't say all, but most of the landscaping that is going in is a natural landscape that is drought resistant. So we will have sprinklers running on that until everything takes root and is seeded and is established. But then the intent is turning those off. And letting nature kind of run with that to an extent. The sprinkler system will stay in place and used as needed, but we're using natural species that are already growing down there without a water system, and so that is the intent, as I understand it.
That's good.
I just have a tangential comment, but I don't know how it would fit into the plan. But I know one concern was sort of thinking about if you're out enjoying nature and then you kind of see these big white walls, right, that are kind of reflecting the light. I definitely think that's some good territory for some public art of some sort. So I don't know if it fits into the plan, but it'd be really cool.
That's above my pay grade. So.
Just to make it more interesting and a softer transition from the big white walls to the,
Something to think about.
I've got my own agenda there.
Well, we're not against it. Anything else?
Any more questions for the petitioner?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate your being here.
Chair Nadolski, I'd like to make a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-11.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez, second by Councilmember White to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-11. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye, that passes. Thank you for being here. I think, speak for on behalf of the council, if you get some windows in that historical building, that'll more than make up for this
Lack of winds.
minor subtraction. Thanks, you guys. Okay, Mr. Montgomery, back to you again for metal accessory structures amendments.
Okay, this is an item that the Planning Commission is forwarding to you for consideration. And as we get this pulled up, then that's not it. We'll talk about this. So this is actually looking at a change to the regulations for all zones in the zoning ordinance to revise some standards regarding accessory buildings and the use to have metal siding on those buildings. The reason the Planning Commission forwarded this to you was started with a petition that took place regarding a conditional use permit. We have in the ordinance that if a building is desired, accessory building is desired that is larger than the home that's on the property, that it has to be reviewed as a conditional use permit. And so site plan was reviewed for a property that is on 12th Street. That is an agricultural area, a home, and then there's an existing wood barn that is there on the property, which is starting to fail, so the owner of the property desired to have a new building built. When he came to the Planning Commission with that proposal, the Planning Commission felt in terms of scale of the property and location and everything else, it was appropriate, but the building did not meet the material requirement that he wished to have and what the ordinance required. So the Planning Commission recommended approval of the conditional use permit as it was with the present ordinance. Then they asked staff to look at possible revisions that could allow these metal buildings on larger properties that are really agricultural type uses. So almost a metal barn, if you will. So this is the property as it looks today. That's the middle picture is the existing barn shed area. And you can see it's 2,100 square feet, and the house is 1,800 square feet, so it's bigger than the home. And the proposed structure would be kind of as depicted in the bottom picture, a metal barn. So, as the Planning Commission looked at this, they directed us, as I mentioned, to review things. So we took a look at our standards that were created in 2011 of metal accessory buildings. So if it's less than 400 square feet, we allow them. Those are some of the items you may find at Home Depot or Lowe's or at those smaller little buildings. But once it gets over 400 square feet, the requirements are that it needs to have its exterior surface done in a variety of materials, but metal siding is not one of those. And then if the building gets over that size and it's on a property over a half acre, then the Planning Commission reviews it in terms of conditional use permits. So we presented why we have the standard of the different types of metal that could take place and what's the difference between those that are peeling and those that are peeling.
Nice.
Trying to make that distinction of what are the features that are the difference. And one of the things we looked at is basically the architectural lines, the eaves or the lack of eaves, the openings that take place in the window, and variations that take place in the roof lines rather than just a straight roof. So we took those areas and started to come up with some criteria of what would be the most appropriate way to approach these buildings. Again, avoiding the industrial appearance, but then creating other buildings. So we looked at the materials and said a lot of the new materials, metal materials that are used are not the wavy corrugated materials that typically have been used many years, but they are square ribbed. They've got a feature to them. They create shadow lines. And if they have a baked enamel surface to it or coating, those seem to work better and become more appropriate in an urban setting. So again, avoiding the galvanized, but getting more into that type of material. The other thing we looked at then is having some addition take place to that, whether it be a shed roof off the side, somewhere that you have some detail or quality. Looking at the roof pitches, having a 412 minimum, an overhang, 6-inch overhang at least, and setting some of the roof standards of gable or shed or gambrel. So a gable roof is where it's just, comes in and you got an end there. A shed roof is just this one pitch to it this way. Or a gambrel is on the pitch to the right. The pitches change as you go up. So those what those roof types are. Then the relief element, as I mentioned, requiring roof material, windows on 2 sides at least. The Planning Commission recommendation, they had recommended to you that this provision apply to properties that are over an acre in size. That with the idea that that's more of an agricultural type lot. You have enough room to have some of those larger buildings. And that really translated to a 1/4% of the city properties that could take advantage of this. You had asked us to take a look at changing that standard to 1/2 an acre. So this illustration shows going from 1 acre to 1/2 acre, that adding 334 additional lots that are 1/2 acre to 1 acre in size, and having those opportunities for that to occur. The map on the right gives you an idea of where all those are concentrated. A lot of it southeast Ogden, a lot of it Mount Ogden area, some along 12th Street, and some of those large vacant properties that are in mid-block areas between 12th Street and 2nd Street. Those are the areas that this would happen in. It also opens up, going to 1/2 acre, some areas in East Central. And so one of the items that we're proposing in this revised ordinance that was not in the Plan Commission recommendation was some language to clarify that the more specific standards that occur in the East Central, which really tie the building to the accessory buildings to match the materials of the main house, that they would supersede any accessory standard that we add because of the half acre size. That the East Central has more specific standards, and those would still be applicable. We didn't want people to pull this ordinance, oh, I can do this, and then not understand, no, there's another ordinance that has more specific details. We put language into this one to help alert people that there is something else they need to consider if they're looking to go this way with the metal buildings. So with those revisions, the other thing we clarified was language regarding vinyl. And we talked about this in the work session, that we've had a couple cases where the vinyl portables were said, well, this does meet your ordinance, it is vinyl. And you have nothing that says it has to be a rigid vinyl. And so we've added some language in there to also clarify that the exterior material for accessory buildings has to be a rigid vinyl material. So with those revisions, the Plan Commission's recommendation was 7-0 to make the approval. You've asked it to be reduced to 1/2 acre, which is what we have before you tonight, and also added the additional language regarding the East Central to make sure people know what's required of them. So that's what's before you tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Montgomery?
The materials today is much different than it was in other years. There's more decorative product there, but I think what we're trying to do is encourage not to have an industrial building, but to have more
in a residential zone.
Yeah, to have more decorative aspect to that. Do they last longer, the decorative materials?
You know, the life of them, when those metal materials have a very long life. I think generally they look at least 50 years on that. And even some of the other items that we have in the ordinance, the hardy plank, some of those things also have a long life to them.
So the program that Mr. Matthews presented, would this ordinance prevent him from building his building?
No. This would then allow to build it as he originally proposed.
Okay.
Any more questions for Mr. Montgomery?
I've got a question about East Central, the regulations. So if you, could you get approval for something that looks, you know, if it's made out of a different kind of material but looks like the historic materials?
So in the East Central, we do talk about that it tries to be compatible with the home itself. And so in using materials, generally we say you've got to follow the materials that the building has on it. They'll be an accessory. Again, remember, if it's under 400 square feet, it has some different. But if it's larger than 400, that they use that palette of materials, we say, so the hardy plank, the brick, those would become the acceptable materials for the accessory buildings also. So it looks like the house and all the other buildings tie in together with it.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Montgomery.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Before we go there, Chair, I know Mr. Greg Matthews quite well. Does that separate me from voting on this issue?
I don't think so if you don't have an interest in the outcome or.
Is he paying you?
No.
Then you're probably okay.
Are you doing some metal sheeting? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're selling it to
You
us?
sell them, that's what I'm doing.
Mr. Chair, there is public input, if you want to take that.
Okay, thanks.
For the motion.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll be receiving public input on this item. If anybody has anything to address the council on this item, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm not seeing anybody rushing to the podium, so I will make a motion then to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-12.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Stevens to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-12. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye. That passes. Thank you. Last item on our agenda is new business. Or sorry, reports, not the last item, reports from administration, natural resources and sustainability stewardship committee ordinance amendments. We'll hear from Amy. Thank you.
Okay, and this will be very brief, so you're almost to your last item. I just have before you a couple of amendments to the ordinance that you recently adopted on the Natural Resources and Sustainability Stewardship Committee. So the proposed amendments are to include a definition breakdown of base members and student members. So the base members would have membership of 7 to 9 members, and the base members would actually be the ones that would establish a quorum at the meetings. And then it would also allow some student membership of up to 3 high school students to allow membership from multiple schools, ages 15 to 18. They'd have 1-year terms as voting members and then a 2 consecutive term limit. And then with that, there's also a proposed amendment from the last time that we discussed this item, and it would just be with the attendance expectation to clarify that the expectation would be attendance 75% of the meetings over an 18-month period, just to kind of give a window so you're not just over a 10-year period or something like that. It's very specific to that. So with that, any questions? I know we discussed a little bit in the work session, but.
I have a clarification.
Yeah, definitely.
The 3 students from the 3 high schools, which one are those that they're going to draw from?
So there's not specification in the ordinance. Aside from there is like an indication in some parentheses that it could be Ben Lomond High School, Ogden High School, or Da Vinci Academy. However, that does not have limitations to that. So some of the private schools could also be participants as well.
Well, what about St. Joseph? Would they be required in
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. They'd absolutely have the opportunity to participate. There just isn't an exhaustive list of the schools in the ordinance.
So we don't need to increase maybe to 4 instead of 3.
And appreciate your question. I think from the work session discussion, and it's obviously completely up to you as the policymakers on this decision, but I think if there's a lot of interest, maybe when we relook at the ordinance, we could relook at that. But as of current, I think 3 seems like it would be a workable number with the amount of interest that's come from the students.
I think it's a challenge, Councilmember Stevens, because there's so many schools. Like there's New Ames that's at Weber State. There's several online high schools. There's lots of high schools that are actually represented by the students that attend or live in Ogden City. So it might be hard to list every possibility in the ordinance.
It also occurs to me that, they could come to those meetings even if they're not a member, as where the students aren't voting members anyway.
And the students are voting members. They're just
Okay.
not part of the quorum.
Okay, I'm with you.
Sorry.
But anyway, that would give them some, they could show interest that way and, be able to be selected in the future.
I would think that you would work it through a rotating process where you would have 3 schools maybe one time and maybe rotate it to another different 3 schools to participate in that opportunity.
I assume that they all went through the same form process that everyone else applied. I don't want to use the word applied, but used to have interest in this. The other thing is 3 students out of, and we have 9 adults. Potential 9 adults. That's a lot of. That's a pretty good ratio right there to begin with. So.
Agreed.
So, yeah.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
Any more
thank
questions
you
for
so
Amy?
much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate your time on this.
And
Okay.
time away.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I propose that we adopt proposed ordinance 2019-14.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember White, second by Vice Chair Chaburka to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-14. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes. All right.
Chair, if I could just make one real quick comment.
Absolutely.
I think it's very important to realize that when we originally put this ordinance together, we didn't even think students would want to participate. So I think by adding 3 is commendable. Thank you.
Yep, a lot of interest. It's a great problem to have. If it's a problem, it's not. But.
Yeah.
Okay, reports from new business. Long night. Fiscal year 2020 financial principles.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to try to be quick as well. So what you've got on the agenda are the 2020 financial principles. So the financial principles are adopted each year by a joint resolution, and they outline the fiscal policies and practices that the administration and the council have agreed to. These principles ensure that we as a city are following the state law, the generally accepted accounting practices or the GAAP standards, as well as doing our very best to be fiscally transparent. So for this year, we've got one change that's proposed for you, and that change has to do with city donations to nonprofit organizations. And the change would add language requiring what we refer to as a 1082 study, and that refers to a section in the state code that requires a study showing the benefits that the community would receive if a donation is made. And the language is pretty narrowly written, and it's specific to donations that are proposed with the budget, and is specific to organizations with which the city does not have a contract for services. And it's written that narrowly because as per that section in state code, if the donation is made outside of the budget process, that study is required no matter what. The way the state code reads, if the donation is made with the budget or proposed with the budget, that study is not required based on state code. We can require that as a city, which is what this language does. And then as far as the contract element, we wanted to put that in there and limit that to just organizations with which we do not have a contract, because we felt that if there was a contract written or if an organization had gone through an RFP or an RFQ process, those benefits would have been articulated with those documents. So it's pretty narrowly written to apply to donations to nonprofit organizations if it's proposed with the budget, and if it's an organization that we don't have a contract for services with. That's about it. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Glenn?
I don't have a question for Glenn. I do have a comment about this whole financial principles discussion, and I think at least the realization that I've got is that there are a lot of really good organizations that help us in the city do remarkable things. It's impossible for us and inappropriate for us to be picking winners and losers based on, well, this one does that good and this one does better, or whatever it is. So I think it's responsible for us to set this kind of an ordinance up to allow us to judge based on how much, whether there's a reciprocal benefit that comes to the taxpayers, which is who we represent, and do this business with them based on that reciprocal benefit. So I'm really happy to do this. It takes us out of awkward situations that do come up from time to time, and I'm really grateful that we're going this way. I think it's the prudent, reasonable, and fair way to do this kind of business.
Thanks. Any more comments or questions? I have one, Glenn.
Yes.
Just that came to mind while you're presenting. I can't think of an example, but I'm just curious. What would happen if we get into the budget process and we did want to make a decision that was maybe outside the bounds of the financial principles?
Well, it's not ordinance, so it's just adopted by joint resolution. I think we might have to address that on a case-by-case basis because these wouldn't be binding, but I think in good faith we would want to follow those as closely as possible.
Yeah, would we want to, could it potentially conflict with statute to stray from the principles, or?
Not as far as I know, because like I said, this is joint resolution, so it's not binding, but I don't know for sure. I heard that.
Attorney says you're right.
I'll take that.
I'm not surprised. You pretty much always are.
Right.
Okay.
Chair Nadolski, I just have one other. I think another purpose of the financial principles is to signal to our financial partners, so those people that we bond or may bond with, that we do have a tight control on our finances, and that we do have policies in place that are guiding, and so it's not just seat of the pants, however you feel in that day about what happens with the budget. So I think that's a really important thing to point out as well.
Perfect. I was just curious. I couldn't think of an example, but just curious. Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm prepared to.
That's the motion?
Yep.
Okay, I would make a motion that we adopt the resolution 2019-1.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember White to adopt proposed joint resolution 2019-1. Sorry, this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye. That passes. Great. Thanks for your work on that. Okay. And item number 11 on our agenda, public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding concerns or ideas on any topic. Yep. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and if you'll state your name, we appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Richard Lee. I am with Extenet Systems. We are a neutral host utility provider. In English, we build wireless networks for all the major wireless carriers. We also build neutral hosts, wherein we'll build a network that the major carriers can join on to. Unfortunately, I guess I'm here to lodge a complaint. I first contacted City Attorney Mark Stratford by email in May 16th of last year requesting to start the process to obtain a master license and franchise agreement with the city. I do have active projects with a couple of the major carriers. And as I understand it, the council adopted a small wireless facility ordinance in August. I continue to renew my interest in receiving draft agreements. I will say Mr. Stratford shared a copy of the ordinance with us, requesting comment. That was prior to the August 28th adoption. We had our comments back within 3 days. I've subsequently requested via voicemail, via email on numerous occasions. Finally, December 7th, I sent him an email and I said, I'm going to be in your office in a little while. He responded, told me what his availability was. I said at that point, I'll be there within the hour. And he called me, said, I know what you want. I understand you want the agreements. And I will have those to you by close of business tomorrow. That was December 7th, which didn't happen. Mr. Stratford at that time said that he had had a significant computer problem and that he went on to say the problem had been resolved and that I would have draft agreements the following day. That was December 10th. In light of the FCC ruling that came out January 16th, I forwarded Mr. Stratford language on that, the declaratory ruling. And at this point, after saying thank you, he's a ghost. So I do have active projects in less than 20 seconds to talk that I'm trying to bring into your city to improve telecommunications. I can't get the cooperation of the city attorney that I've been working with. I'm asking for your help and support in getting that draft agreement. Agreements, plural.
Thank you, Mr. Was it Lee?
Richard Lee.
Richard Lee, thanks for hanging tight. You've been very patient. I think our city attorney is going to step out and
thank you for your
give you
time.
here for a bit.
Last one question. Roosters or roses for dinner?
Rosas.
Rosas, yeah.
Rosas. Well, I live in Heber, so I figured I'd have dinner while I'm in your first city.
Either.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I have a coin, heads or tails.
Breakfast still open for dinner.
Thanks for your patience. Hope Gary can help you out.
Yeah, it might be.
Anyone
Yeah,
else?
Roosters. Maybe you have to go to Roosters.
Should have said,
Sorry.
are you in the mood for Mexican or?
You came in right in time.
Thank you. Once again, I am stealthily watching the proceedings from my home so I can get here just in time. Yeah. So my name is Emily Beely, and my address is 2247 Van Buren Avenue. And I want to thank you, all you city council members and the mayor for, oh, he's not here, for allowing this public comment. And so as you know, I'm wanting to talk about tiny homes because my husband and I have our hearts and our backyard ready to accommodate some poor people who, we want to prosper them. So I thank you so much for responding to all my calls and emails, for all of you who have responded and agreed with me that tiny homes could be one of the solutions to affordable housing in Ogden, or to the concerns about affordable housing. And so as far as I understand, there are 3 issues that are between me and being able to offer this resource. And they are to change the ADU definition, lowering the square footage minimum to 197 square feet, changing the zoning for the R15 district that I'm in to allow ADUs, because initially when you set that up, we were not part of that group. And then the other is to allow any owner-occupied home to construct an ADU or to provide one. And so those are the 3 things that I know of that need to be addressed. And so In my correspondence, I shared with you some information about the ministry that I was working with, Mercy House Ministries, and the gentleman, Judah Becker. So he had been out of the country for about 6 weeks when I was here last. He was over in India. And so I have brought him this evening so that he can share with you his experience, his education, his credentials, so that you can know that he is committed to this effort. He's qualified, and he's got the know-how, and I have the willingness and the property, and so hopefully together we can create one of the solutions. All right, here he is.
Can I address you before you
Oh, sure.
step away? I don't believe I've gotten an email from you. Could you make sure you send me one so I can
Absolutely.
contact you?
Yeah, I know. I've been in touch.
Yes.
I thought it was
Yeah.
the whole council, but
I've either missed it or didn't get it, one of the two. So
I
Sure.
don't think a lot of us on the council got your email.
yeah.
Really? Because I just, you know,
Well, we do
entered
get a
all
lot
your
of
email
emails,
addresses.
though,
I'm
so-
sure you do.
we do.
All right. So should I do anything in
If you
particular?
just get on the website, find my email, send me one
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, because that's what I feel I have done. Is there a phone that I could text as well to say I sent it to you?
Whatever's on the website, you feel free.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll give it a shot again. Yeah. And I'm sorry. I certainly intended to send one to everybody. I definitely have all your faces. I've looked at you all, you know.
I got one.
Our
Yeah.
apologies. Yeah.
All right.
Our apologies.
Sure.
Okay, we're going
We'll
to give
give
you
it to-
another.
Give it to Brandon.
We'll give you another 3 minutes. We'll just start you over. If you could just state your name and.
Okay, my name's Judah Becker, and thank you, Mrs. Beely, members of the council, and our fellow citizens of Ogden. We've built homes, orphanages, schools, and huts overseas. We've built Katrina homes when FEMA could not meet the need. Here in Ogden, we have a housing crisis, as you know, and our organization has an effective solution. We can build homes quickly to house our citizens at a price that people can afford. Our Planning Commission has already reviewed the viability of our plan, and Planning has asked for Council to act since August 2018. Quoting, "Are we against offering housing affordability to all citizens in Ogden? Are alternative housing affordability solutions like ADUs and tiny homes only reserved for select citizens of Ogden?" The council was briefed at the Salt Lake City Housing Gap Coalition Initiative in August of 2018, City Council meeting with a report from Ken Gardner Institute. And according to the report, housing prices are increasing and threatening the cost of living, economic prosperity, and quality of life. Unchecked, the average Utah resident will be priced out. We have to start implementing housing affordability solutions as soon as possible. Before it becomes too late, I ask you to keep Ogden citizens in mind and allow for all owner-occupied homes to allow for ADUs. We must be equitable in offering solutions for all. Time is of the essence. We have a housing solution for single adults, newlyweds, veterans, and the like. We have qualified contractors standing by who know the codes and the needs. Do we want these little 3 codes to prevent us from voting on this vital issue? We need to do this immediately before we lose another segment of our population who are coming here to work. This is our future. This is our tax base. The people who are coming here, who are working at minimum wage, those who are working at our factories, our manufacturing, they need housing. And here's an opportunity for them to be able to buy their own home. For $500 down and $500 a month, we're able to sell them a home. And it's a starter home and one that they'll be able to afford. So I yield to all of you, give you time for your responses, and hear what you have to say, since this is my first time being here.
Thank you. If there are questions from the council, we'll entertain those, but we normally don't interact with public commenters unless there's questions from the council.
Okay.
Okay, but
thank you.
We might, actually, I have one if no one else does. Did you have one?
I just, what's the complete price of a tiny home?
$35,000.
Is that what you were asking?
Are you involved at all in the the Habitat for Humanity project that we're hearing talk about now too?
Over in Cambodia and Thailand, yes. Here, no. But I am aware of what they're doing and been in contact with Tim at Standard Examiner.
Okay, so is what you have in mind, is it similar to what they're discussing in terms of scale, or is this even smaller?
Smaller and less expensive.
Sorry,
and built quicker.
More like an ADU than a
yes.
tiny home
yeah.
development. Okay.
They're, I think, are called mini homes.
Mini home, okay, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Well, I definitely see, I mean, besides the, those three things that were mentioned, it's also the definition of what an ADU is. I think we're back to that again.
Yeah.
Because, certain tiny home projects, right, they don't have plumbing and, that kind of.
Yeah, these are complete with kitchen, bathroom, everything.
And so they have plumbing that's connected
all
to
the plumbing,
the
sewer,
infrastructure?
everything. They're just like a regular house, but just on a smaller scale.
Permanent footing?
No wheels?
No wheels.
Okay, good. That was
permanent structure.
Permanent structure.
Because that's not the picture that I saw in the paper of these tiny homes that were.
It's
not the picture that I saw several weeks ago.
That was a picture of.
Yeah, you're right.
That's something
that was
different.
definitely.
That's what I have in my mind when you're talking.
That's why I brought pictures.
Okay. All right, appreciate it. We're.
Thank you.
Where are you? Where are you located?
Up on Brinker Avenue.
Brinker Avenue.
Yep.
And is it a nonprofit?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Oh man. Okay. Any other? Ms. Castillo.
Chance to talk to you.
Like yeah.
Angel Castillo, 1260 25th Street. And I am basically circling back. I've been in email communication with the council. And one of my big things since early January is trying to get everyone to really seriously take a look at housing affordability solutions, which encompass everything from ADUs to tiny homes to inclusionary zoning. As the Kemp report was referenced in the previous comment, and of course the Salt Lake Chamber came here in August of last year, we are increasing, although our local property prices, home prices, are not that of Seattle, we are increasing at the same percentage. So we're starting with a lower base, but we're still going up. And so we need to get in front of this. And as I've mentioned before, Salt Lake City has inclusionary zoning on their docket to review this year. Unfortunately, Salt Lake City has missed the train. It's left the station. They're behind the ball in trying to get ahead of this. And we have an opportunity to take a look at our zoning and modify our zoning to accommodate for housing affordability solutions for everyone. The tiny home issue is what in the planning, as a member of the Planning Commission, we've had a discussion about this, and what Emily was referring to with regards to all owner-occupied homes. Right now, the ordinance is such that it's only a single-family home, which I think is doing us a disservice because we already have units within Ogden that are duplex, triplex, quadplex. So Emily has a duplex. And so by putting a tiny home to allow someone to lift a member of the community out of poverty and give them a chance, the way the zoning ordinance is now, because Emily has a duplex, she wouldn't be able to do that. And I think that's an important thing to take a look at. Are we going to be all inclusive in this solution? Are we going all in to allow everybody to participate with this? Is this a with the tide all ships rise opportunity, or only certain neighborhoods allowed? Because Emily's neighborhood wouldn't allow for a duplex or a triplex. And so I think that's something very serious to consider when we're looking at this moving forward. What are we going to do for housing affordability solutions? There is no magic bullet for housing. It's nothing but a game of marginal gains, and we need to take every marginal gain we can and move it forward just a little bit. So we might not be able to encompass everybody, but we can lift up a good 15-20% of our population a little bit at a time by looking at these housing affordability solutions. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any more public comment? Yeah, okay. Seeing none. Mr. Johnson in the mayor's absence.
Thank you. Just a couple comments. I believe it's the 20-year anniversary of when Weber State defeated North Carolina in the NCAA tournament. I had an opportunity to be in North Carolina over the weekend, and on Friday I wore my Weber State purple shirt, golf shirt, and I was at my nephew's home, and his neighbor came over and immediately saw my shirt and made comments about Weber State and how much he hated Weber State, and I'm like, he said, I wouldn't wear that shirt very many places here in North Carolina. For us Weber State fans, that was kind of cool. I also was stopped by Duke fans who said they had a shirt just like it that they bought after Weber State beat North Carolina. So, and they wore it to the first Duke North Carolina game the next year. Just thought that was interesting that apparently they hold a grudge back there for at least 20 years. That was kind of fun. Just to comment, our Christmas Village takes a backseat to no one in the state of Utah. We have one of the very best, and we have one of the very best committees. And Monty and Jay, was the one who really got it going, along with Joe Packham and others who had vision. We're very proud of what they do, what they accomplish, and we're very grateful for the funding that you allocate. It's not a cheap opportunity, but it's one that people have been having in their lives now for many, many, many years, and it's certainly worth it. You already were told this, but I just wanted to, on record, say that the Utah Chiefs of Police Association have awarded Chief Watt the large police department Chief of the Year. I think that is more than deserved. Chief Watt has earned this over the last 32 years of service that he's given to Ogden City. We're very proud of him, and of course that's where Mayor Caldwell is, there with him in St. George as he receives this award. Lastly, I want to compliment you as a council for honoring and recognizing Janine. But I also want to testify that her staff is really sneaky, and they always are sneaky. But I've worked with Janine longer than any of you. I've worked with Janine for 15 years, known her for a long time, and she has a good laugh, but she also has that sarcastic British humor, which I got to experience today on the phone when I was talking to her on the way back from Draper. It's a privilege to work with her, and she defends you to the hilt. Sometimes we do battle, friendly battle, and we're friends, but we do the battle. I think that a lot of the dance between the administration and the council happens between myself and Janine. And I have incredible respect for her. She is a marvelous individual, very bright, very solution-oriented, doesn't seem to get ruffled. She's very logical thinking. And it is a privilege to work with her, and I thought it was more than appropriate for you to recognize her today. And I thought how wonderful of a council you are to be doing that and to be recognizing that. So just thought I would add my 2 bits there.
Thank you, Mark. Any comments from the council? Okay, just real quick, I failed to mention that when we did the diversity commission item, Oscar Mata was appointed to the commission, and he sends his regrets that he couldn't be here. He's really, really sick, and, but he wanted to be here. But just wanted you guys to know that he's thankful for the appointment and looks forward to serving. And just for those who are here today to speak to the housing affordability issues, I think I've mentioned before that we're preparing a fact-finding mission, you could say, where we've got all of these different housing affordability issues that we want to grapple with. I can tell you from a personal perspective, our time that we spent in Denver really brought that affordability issue front and center. And it makes a pretty big difference to be able to see your potential future and experience it in real life. And then to be able to kind of compare that to our current circumstances and to know that the time is now for us to be having those discussions and for us to be having long-term considerations, because I know in most portions of Denver, they're not able to reclaim that affordability once it's gone, and they're struggling to. So I think the council is very mindful of that, especially now after on-the-ground experience in Denver. So we're, in fact, Angela and I spoke this morning about what we could do to maybe accelerate the timeline to begin that fact-finding mission. We've got a huge thing right around the corner called the budget that we have to, that is like an all hands on deck. It's going to take all of our attention, but we're kind of hoping to have it right after the budget season to go into the planning and fact-finding mode. I know that that's probably not as fast as you're hoping for, but please know that we're taking it seriously, so seriously. In fact, we don't want to jump to any conclusions, and we want to make sure we're considering each of these opportunities relative to one another. And you could tell just from the conversation tonight, when it comes to tiny homes, there's lots of questions about just that single thing. So I think we anticipate having that here in this room, bringing in some external expertise to give us some briefs, pros, cons, et cetera. But we know we're not the only community that's struggling with these things. So communities are struggling for a reason. It's difficult, there's no doubt. But we don't want you to think that we're not listening, but we're not anxious to jump without more thoughtful dialogue, I think.
If I might just jump in on that very topic, coming from the Planning Commission and talking a lot about land use things, this is kind of something that's kind of near and dear to me. I've lived here all my life. I hope my kids stay. This is not a single dimension or a single facet issue that's got so many dimensions that it's going to take some people with a lot more smarts than I have to help sort through the other issues that relate to this. So I appreciate leadership and your efforts to address this thing in a transparent and open way, and allow let's get the whole story before we decide on something. I think I mentioned once before, I have a couple of nephews that make these tiny homes down in Utah County. So I've heard their story. It's different than yours. It's interesting how this thing might change from person to person. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a good discussion.
Me too. Okay, anything else from anybody?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Lopez to adjourn. This is voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.